Yes, thank you, Alan. In this section of the presentation, we'll be hearing from 3 British companies that have already begun working with partners in the USA on the Virginia Beach offshore wind opportunity. We hope we'll be able to provide you with enough insight to make it easier for you to join them. The first company we're going to hear from is Seajacks, who specialise in self-propelled jack-up vessels for the construction and maintenance of offshore energy projects. Joining me now is Ian Robertson, who is the HR and crewing manager at Seajacks. Ian, can you just tell us a little bit about what Seajacks is up to in Virginia?
What we're doing in Virginia is we're working with Dominion Energy to build with them the first Jones Act offshore construction vessel specifically for the wind industry. Large vessel, classed Gusto MSC designed, a big sister to our own existing vessel, Scylla. Vessel we named Seajacks, well, it will not Seajacks Charybdis, but it'll be called Charybdis, which is the sister of Scylla. She's down in Brownsville at the moment, working with the Keppel's yard down there, and we're assisting with preparing her to be built properly, effectively, on time, and going then to work in the wind industry in America.
And how are you viewing the opportunity in Virginia specifically and the USA more generally in terms of offshore wind?
It's huge. It is absolutely huge. People can't underestimate, and it will happen so quickly. Virginia is the key area for wind in America. You know, we're using Texas as a construction yard, but that's because that's where the yard is. The actual operations will be run out of Virginia. The facilities there are right for developing, the ports, everything in that area is there. The supply chain is there. It'll just need to be tailored slightly to the wind industry's needs. But the 30 gigawatts by 2030 that the US government is talking about is huge. And it's doable. That's the big thing. We've seen lots of talk in Europe about, is it doable, is it not? In America, it's doable.
So tell us a little bit about how transferable the skills, expertise and equipment that we're using on the east coast of England will be to the east coast of the USA.
Completely. What the US needs and what the US market how we can assist the US market is stopping making the same mistakes twice. Like that. We've all made mistakes here in the east of England, you know, projects that were looked at that didn't work, things that went wrong, safety learnings, basic safety learnings that we can help transfer across. Understanding how things can be done more efficiently, how things can be done safer, which is a key thing for everything. Just taking the knowledge that we've learned in the east of England and moving that to other parts of the world. We've seen it work efficiently in Asia. We've got vessels work in Asia. So we've learned from that side how it works, and now it's moving it on further to the US, to that big growth market.
Is there anything particular about the actual physical environment, you know, the sea, the weather, the seabed, that's going to be a bit of a surprise or a bit of a shock for people, or is it everything going to be within the normal tolerances of what people can cope with?
It should be within the tolerances. The winter weather looks awful, but then again, we're used to terrible winter weather. We've got the North Sea, which has got some of the most ferocious weather in the world. The seabed is not too different. A lot of the survey work has been done out there, actually by UK companies. They've been out there surveying because they've got the experience already for what the wind markets are looking at. So we know what we're going to. We know what the soils are like. We know what the conditions are like. The real nuances, the small points, you're only going to find out when you get there, because everything has little tricks to it.
And is there a particular way that British companies should be approaching market entry into the USA, do you think?
Yeah, go speak to the Americans. It's their country. It may sound really silly and very, very childish, but go speak to them. They want help. They're open. They understand they've got a learning curve to go through. So this is the time to be speaking to them. What are you doing now? What are you doing long term? We were speaking to Dominion for probably 4 years before this was announced. So it is long-term development. Understand who your partners there. Understand the market. Don't come in and set up and just say, hey, look at us. We can do all the work for you. We don't need you lot. That's not going to work in that market. So you need to find your partners and work with the right partners there who can understand and help you to help them.
Is there anything that you've learned with your, and I know we're in early days of this project, but is there anything that you've learned about doing business in the USA in general, but Virginia in particular, that you kind of wish you knew before?
Taxes. Yeah, as Americans, quite well known for taxes. Yeah, understand that. Understand the legal framework. Understand the insurance framework. There, that you have all the right background information in there, so you have the right cost base that you're going in to work with. Understand that you will need a setup in America. You can't just go in and say, oh, we'll do everything remotely from the UK. You will need a setup there. You will need to look at that. We probably could have set the CJAX US Inc. up earlier, but it worked. The timing worked for us. But if you're in certain other industries where you're not developing such a big piece of steel like we are, it's probably worth going in and doing that work early, doing the research, and learning what the market you're going into is all about.
And in terms of hand-holding, is there any particular companies, organisations, individuals that have been really invaluable for getting established in the US and getting onto this opportunity?
The DIT has been great. They've put us in contact with the right people who are able to explain to us who, what, where, why, when. That has helped us greatly. There is all the American business networks that the DIT also can feed you into. And that's helped. It saved us money. At the end of the day, it saved us money. And mainly it saved us money by we didn't make mistakes. And that's important.
Is there anything that we haven't talked so far about that you think would be particularly useful for an audience of British businesses looking to get into this opportunity in Virginia?
Realise what you're going to is, I think, the biggest thing I would say to people. It's a massive country. They've already got a huge wind industry, albeit onshore, but it's going to go offshore. Take the knowledge that you've got in the UK and take it to that market to work alongside the Americans, not to replace them, because you're going to struggle to do that. So, no, I think anybody who's attending this should have a pretty good understanding, or at least a good intention of what they're going to look at.
Ian, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you.
Another company from the east coast of England who have made a successful entry into the east coast of the USA is PipeShield. PipeShield is one of the world's leading providers of specialised subsea pipeline protection systems. Joining me now is David Blake, who's the sales director for PipeShield International. David, can you just tell us a little bit about what PipeShield are up to in Virginia?
Okay, well, we are currently in the process of setting up a strategic alliance with a local US-based company. People that know anything about PipeShield know we predominantly deal with concrete for subsea scour and cable protection. So we are looking for have been looking for a US-based concrete expert that can work with PipeShield, to be able to offer our full portfolio of products and services to the US market.
And how's PipeShield International viewing this opportunity? How strategically important is it?
Well, we feel absolutely critical. We believe that the US market has always been quite, protective of its own workforce and opportunities within the United States, which is, not a bad thing at all. And also the renewable industry tends to be quite localized. There's always a big emphasis on the renewables contracts historically for a high local content, bringing opportunities to the direct locale that are being affected by any potential disruption initially, but also long-term opportunities. So we see that as a no-brainer, that if you want to have an opportunity within the US renewables market, you've got to be there. And it's a business model that we, have done quite successfully around the world over the last few years. So.
And in terms of that route to market, for those businesses in the UK that might have a good offering, how would you advise people to approach the market in terms of how do you make market access? What tips, what have you learned that would be useful for new entrants?
Well, I would say don't be afraid. I mean, sometimes people can get tied up with the fact that there could be political barriers in place. But at the end of the day, what our finding is businesses like doing business with other businesses. And, at the head of those businesses are people. And, if anything over the last year has taught us that, there are other forms of communication. You don't necessarily need to be face to face. This is, the next best thing, I should say, and talk to people. What's the worst that can happen? But, one thing is for sure, certainly within the renewables industry, there's an awful lot of skill sets within the UK, and it's an industry that you don't need to make the same mistakes. We've done it already. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So combine those expertise and that skill set with, already established great companies within stateside, and it's a perfect recipe as far as I'm concerned.
So would you say that partnerships are critical for this type of opportunity, and how do people go around finding the right partners?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, to typify, we have long-term strategic partnerships across the Middle East and in Asia. And we see this as another similar business model. Choose experts in their field. We're experts in ours. We're not trying to compete with our own supply chain. They know their strengths. They know our strengths, and vice versa. What we do is we provide the full technical support, really, from the UK side of things, and in-country supervision to work with their local teams. And it works very, very well. Good communication is key, obviously. And yes, there are time differences, but sometimes that's a good thing. It gives you the opportunity to prepare certain things in advance. So when they first wake up, there's a response that you can get busy with straight away, and vice versa. So don't be afraid of timelines. It works, especially if you've got somebody in the country as well.
And is there anything we've not talked about that you think is going to be important for the audience?
I think talking with each other and I think the collaboration doesn't need to start when you get to the States. I mean, there's a whole network of different companies which will make up an overall offering. And I think, sometimes the smaller companies themselves, if they can lock horns and you put their heads together, really, they can probably come up with a collective package, save an awful lot of time, an awful lot of project wasted time, and they could deliver a combined product and services to the market, which will capture quite a big part, even though they may be quite small companies themselves. Pipe Shield are obviously part of the Techmar group, so we have a multitude of group companies that combined would be able to carry out a number of products and services specifically for the renewable industry. So again, those internal communications can go a long way to reducing time, cost and effort, when it comes to dealing directly with the project teams overseas.
Any last words of advice or encouragement for businesses in the UK that have got offshore wind expertise with regards to what's happening in the USA?
Only that we've been here before. And so we've got a wealth of experience. We've seen what's happened with some of the, the offshore wind farms across Europe. They can take a long time to in preparation before we really start to see, some of the rewards of all the hard work. You've just got to do it. But the thing is, because of what we've learned, we can probably help fast track that a little bit and have a better understanding of the timelines involved. I think, stick with it. If you're going to make a commitment to get involved in it, stick with it, because we have seen companies dip their toe in a little bit, trying to be involved in the UK and European offshore wind markets, and then disappear before the rewards are there. And I'd hate to see others do that. If you're going to commit to it.
David from Pipe Shield International, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Our final case study is with Action. Action provide a wide range of services through the full life cycle of offshore energy projects. So we're joined now by Ivan Harnett from Action. He's the renewables market development lead. Ivan, can you just tell us a little bit about what Action are up to in Virginia?
So the Action group of companies, David, we provide services across the development cycle of a wind farm. Previously, one of our businesses, TerraSand, has provided geophysical survey support for the opportunities in Virginia. TerraSand are a US-based business and provided the vessel and survey scope out of the US for that. For the future projects that are coming up in Virginia, several of the Action companies are actively bidding for the work scopes to the EPCI contractors. Menck with their hammers, LDD for the drilling potentially and the grouting scopes, and then Claxton Engineering, who are from Yarmouth, are looking at the pile cleaning scopes on those projects.
And how is Action viewing this opportunity? How big an opportunity do you see it to be?
I think the Virginia opportunity, the Dominion Wind Farm there is a massive project, which has work for multiple years of work for the Action businesses. Outside of that, then I see the expansion of the US wind farm, the program of development in the US wind farms to be it's a significant opportunity for the Action group of companies across the development life cycle of wind farms, from geotechnical site investigation all the way through installation to operations and maintenance. So currently, it looks like around 20 gigawatts of power in the US from 2024 to 2030. And I think with the change of, the political regime in the US as well, that looks, it looks more than likely that those projects will be built. And we see it as a great market to be in for the future.
So just tell us what you've learned about doing business in Virginia compared with doing business in other parts of the world. How easy has it been, and what have you learned?
I think we have a good experience of doing business in the US through our entities in Texas and Louisiana. So we have history there. I think with the advancement of offshore wind on the East Coast, we will move our support bases from the East Coast or from the Gulf states to the East Coast, so that we can be closer to the client requirements. I think initially the first projects, a lot of that equipment will come out of Europe on the vessels, the installation vessels. But I think in the medium term, probably 25, 26 onwards, we will be looking at using equipment based in the US and using more and more US based personnel, most likely East Coast based personnel, to support the projects. But as we go through these projects, we'll establish how we do that, David.
Yeah, so what do you see are the opportunities in terms of what do the Americans need now, and how's that going to change over time? Because like you say, America's quite famous for they want to learn the skills, they want to do things themselves. So how can we help them now, and how do you see those relationships going forward?
So I think the services that we offer are quite specialized services, and we've built up a long track record in supporting offshore wind farm installation and operations and maintenance. What I see happening is the first projects that we do there will be more European content in those projects, but we will be training up our existing American colleagues or new American colleagues to take over those projects. the global growth in offshore wind means that, like across Europe, Asia, and the USA, means that we will have to have localized workforces to support these projects. There's just too much work to do it with people not from the region, I would say.
I guess that's quite a nice problem to have. And in terms of the difference between having the work that you've done on the east coast of England to the east coast of the United States, just paint us a picture of how that differs.
To be honest, a lot of the work is very, very similar. The US looks like it will be very monopile based. Europe, we've had some jacket projects in Europe, but it still looks like very monopile based as well. So the underlying work scopes are still quite similar. Where we potentially would bring more people into the US market is from ex-oil and gas guys that we have in the US, most likely transferring that skill or capability or capacity into the wind market, because at the moment oil and gas is still a bit subdued, I would say, in the US, and the opportunity there is to use that capability and transfer it into wind in the US.
So what do you know now? You're still at the beginning of the journey, but what do you know now that you would have liked to have known right at the beginning? What advice would you give yourself if you could go back in a time machine and advise you on how to approach the market?
I think, as you said, we're still at the start of the journey in US wind. We've done quite well in the survey scopes or the site investigation, and potentially the installation scopes are coming for us as well. I think earlier is potentially to put more resource behind it, because I don't think we understood how big this US market could be. And I think it's the global change, not just the US political regime change, but also the global change and the global emphasis on, new green technology and energy transition. I think if we'd have been able to forecast that, David, we probably would have put more of a push on it, but it's easy to say that in hindsight. So.
And have you got anything else that we've not talked about that you think would be useful for your peers in the east of England?
I think it's the market in the US will be of benefit to the capability that we have in the east of England. The clients are looking for our capability. The clients need our capability. I think in order to have the capacity to deliver that capability, we will need to bring in most likely localized US workforce to support the projects as part of a blended team with our experienced UK or European based personnel as well.
Well, we hope this section has been useful. Ian, David and Ivan will be joining us for a panel discussion where you'll have the chance to ask any additional questions. Thank you for your attention. Now back to Alan.